Welcome to another episode of I Need a Session. I'm Kim Wilson, your host. If this is your first time joining, this show is all about self-empowerment. I created a safe space for people to share their stories. I believe every human being has a story that is connected to the healing, the growth, or development of another human being. Once again, I have a wonderful show lined up for you. And 5, 4, 3, 2, hit it. Meet Kyshona. She has always lent her voice and music to those that feel they have been silenced or forgotten. She began her career as a music therapist, writing her first songs with her patients, the students and inmates under her care. She soon found the need to write independently and find her own voice, an endeavor which led her to the fertile ground of the Nashville creative community and songwriting culture. Since then, she has learned how to balance her music career with her passion to heal the hurting. Audiences will find a common thread of empowerment, overcoming adversity, and hope in her work. Welcome to another session of I Need a Session. I have my very special guest in the studio. Well, we're not really in the studio, but in the studio with me today, Miss Kyshona.
Hello.
I'm just really stoked about having her. One, because she is a music therapist. She's a performer. And, I always say we're not just anything. And she proves just that. And, I'm just going to, I don't like to waste any time. So I'm just going to jump right in. Well, first of all, Kyshona, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I like talking to people. So this is great.
One of the first things I would want to know, by the time somebody say music therapist, now you are a performer. And if somebody Googles you and they see you, they're going to see you in a position as a musician with a guitar and a strap around.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Let's just start there first. What is that story of you going from a music therapist to a signed artist, a musician?
Yeah, I practiced music therapy in Georgia for almost 15 years. I was working in hospitals and working in youth detention centers and in mental hospitals. And, something that I didn't learn in my training in college and in my internship was that therapists need a break. We also need an outlet. And so working in mental health, I found that I was bringing home a lot of the stressors from my clients and my patients. So I just tried to practice what I preached and started writing as my own release. But I was writing songs as a way to kind of flush out everything that I was receiving at work. And then it got to the point of well, that's not a bad song. What if I went to this open mic and played, and then going from an open mic to a coffee shop. And then, I thought I was going to take a step away from music therapy for a year just to kind of regroup and recenter. Because I knew, sometimes I am no longer of service. I'm not good for anyone right now. I need to do some healing and rebuilding. And, I took a step away, but that was over 10 years ago. And so I've been a singer-songwriter since, and just a touring artist ever since. And what the thing that's merged the two is that the songs that I was writing and do write are about the patients that I work with, the people that I've met, the clients that I've had, and the people, even now, I still go into prisons and I go into, nursing homes and perform and meet people, but I'm telling their stories as I'm writing these songs. And when I'm out performing, I'm talking about people that a lot of folks don't ever meet. So I feel like I'm still continuing the music therapy. I'm still wearing that hat, but as a performer instead.
Yeah. Now, so let me get in there. There was so much packed into that.
Sorry.
These words, because I want to make sure the listeners, they don't miss this. Before I can get the words that you use, rebuilding, recenter, before you got to all of that self-awareness that you were using, just even paying attention to feeling burnt out or I need something else, because we can't change anything that we do not acknowledge or understand. So just that tool that you were using.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to make sure people get that.
Yeah. Intuition. Sometimes we don't give our intuition and our gut enough credit. But I found going to work, I wasn't happy. I wasn't sleeping. I had developed some really bad habits for coping. Like I would come home from work, I would work until 8 o'clock, come home, like order Chinese food, drink whiskey, go to sleep on the couch, wake up, do the whole thing over again the next day. I
Oh,
was like,
whiskey, not whiskey.
girl,
What?
yes, honey. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I
whoa.
was hitting it hard, babe. Yeah. Those were dark times. But yeah, like that's not, and it's not, I wasn't abusing alcohol, but it was one of those things of like, this isn't a healthy way of living,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
I come home, eat, sleep, drink, get up, do it all over again. I didn't have a social life. And I find myself, I still have to remind myself not to do this. I was putting the job before myself and putting all of my patients before me. So I would stay at work, making sure all my patients were good before I left for the night, but then come home and not recharge and refill that cup that I had like poured out into everyone,
More of those R words: recharge, refill. Oh, whoa. I mean, so, you said something else that stood out for me. You said I had developed a lot of bad habits for coping. And I want people to connect to those words, because that's what this show is all about: being able to grow and heal from somebody else's story. And so just even having that in our vocabulary, being able to pay attention to, well, what are your habits for coping? For you at that particular time, it may be whiskey, and whether or not you transferred or you added, like, what, I'm going to add another performance at a coffee shop because it gives me the release.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people get stuck just how to, which is why this was my first question. A lot of people get stuck of how to go from A, where I am not happy, I'm sitting on A Street, to B, I am going from coffee house to performance, I am recording. How do I get to that space? And I always say we're not just anything, whether we are a nurse, a doctor, an attorney, a housekeeper, we all have something in us that, can lead to another road. Mm-hmm. So, did you have like somebody that was already doing that in your circle? Did you connect? How did you even know to go to a coffee house?
I honestly, I reached out to one of my mentors and like was telling her, she was my supervisor when I was doing an internship in New York. And I was just kind of, she's checking in, seeing how I was doing. I was like, I'm not good. And she was suggesting I do drum circles because she knew I love drumming. So she was like, why don't you find some drum circles around Atlanta? And I did that. It was great. But it wasn't the same as like, what I found was I'm a talker. I process through talking. And so if I wasn't calling a friend and talking to a friend about things that had happened at work or how I was feeling for the day, I like going to an open mic night. Like in the beginning, I wasn't playing original songs, but just standing in front of a room, doing something outside of my norm. It's like I shifted the energy for a while. These might be woo-woo words for some people, but like I did an energy shift of placing myself in a position of I'm not confident in this role of being on a stage with a guitar on, using my voice as a performance rather than as a therapeutic tool, So I was used to using music as a tool to reach others. And this was like a pen. This was like a stethoscope. My voice was, rather than, being a storyteller. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Probably. Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. Okay. And I just want to go back to the term energy shifter. And another way that I think about that, when you say that, what came up for me was being around like-minded people.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing that came up for me, when at the very beginning you said I reached out to my mentor, one of my favorite quotes, buddy up so you can go up.
Yes.
Listen, right here, you want to know how you do it, get with a mentor, a coach. And the other thing that stood out with me, when she asked you how you were doing, you said, you told her the truth, I am not good. And a lot of times when we are not good, we are not saying that, we are not standing in our truth. That saying is that saying is true. The truth will set you free.
It will set you free. Because the moment you tell someone you're not good, immediately they're like, what do I need to do? What can we do? You know, you invite someone in, you're not carrying it yourself anymore. You know, you're not having to walk around with that weight just by saying, I'm not okay. And, you know, that time was like the first time I ever spoke up and said the words, I need help. I'm not doing all right. And I've gotten better at it over the years, you know, and it doesn't matter what community I'm in, be it a music therapy community or a community of songwriters and artists. I still hold on to the fact that speaking my truth on how I'm really doing is the best like step to taking care of myself. Is just admitting how I really am, you know?
Yeah. Because the thing is, and when you don't tell the truth, you're not even having the right a real conversation. You're having a conversation that's based on something else. So the moment that you tell somebody your truth, you share your truth.
Yeah.
You get to have a real conversation and focus on the solution.
Yeah. It took a lot for me to go into the finding coffee shops. It took a lot of me at home researching, just like, what can I do? Look, there's an open mic. And I thought, I'll just go to that. I've never done that. I'll just go show up first and sit and see what it's like, you know? But it just took me doing some research and seeing what felt uncomfortable and then doing the thing that made me feel uncomfortable.
There's another R word, research.
I had no idea I had this many R words in my vocabulary.
The S's are in the R's, the re's. You want to level up today? You do your research. With great information, you can make great decisions. I love it. I mean, so, and here's the other thing that I just, what came up for me while you were talking, and I want my viewers and listeners to get this. We move and succeed at our own pace.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't happen for her overnight. She didn't just leave the facilities. And you said, hey, I worked in some facilities, some hospitals. And let me tell you, that's a whole different lifestyle, you know, working on a unit and stuff like that. And to be able to transition from that and embrace this flexibility and creativity that lives within you, even though you were doing that on a unit or in your workplace, but now you're doing it in a different way. And so here we are, you did it at your pace, whether it took 7 years, 8 years, 13 years, and now you have an album called Listen. But this not even your first album.
No, this one's the 6th or 7th. I don't talk about the first one. So but I was releasing music when I was still practicing music therapy. That became the something else to focus on, was like all of the songs I wrote for my patients and with my patients. There were a few songs that I wrote with some patients of mine. And but those, just putting those songs out, and I've been in Nashville now for 7 years, but it's been 10 years since I took the big leap into being a full-time artist. And there's something that I found for myself, which is, you're right. We don't all move at the same pace, right? And I can be a cautious person, but I've found in practice, when I make space, it is filled with the positive. It is filled with what I needed. So when I got rid of the thing that was bringing me stress, which was the job, right? I love my patients. I miss them. It was the clinical work, the institutions that wore me down. The moment I let those go, I turned in my letter of resignation, and then I had an email from a booking agent like, hey, would you be interested in playing colleges? You know, hey, would you be interested? And that just led down this path. And so I trust more now that when I make space for the joy comes.
When I make space for the joy. And so, here's another nugget. I want to make sure you all don't miss this. Listen, if you want to heal, remove the infection, period. You know, remove the infection and you will heal. Yeah. I mean, so I want to get to this album. First of all, your music, and listen, you all. Okay, everything is connected. So I discovered and fell in love with her music I was doing a talk and there was a person doing a movement, a technique, and she was using Kyshona's music. And people were in the chat, who is this? What? And I immediately pulled it up. Well, first I Shazammed it.
I love
and,
it.
and it brought it up in my Apple Music and then went to the website. I thought, oh, she is amazing. I love just what I was hearing, the folksy sound. Then I heard a little bit of that. It was almost like a hint of um, uh, I don't want to say spiritual. There was a spiritual component there. It was, and just even paying attention to some of the lyrics. So I just want to just pull up that album real quick, and so first, talk to me about your music, your style, how you would describe it.
Yeah, I am what they now call. People have never been able to put me in a box, but now there's this genre called Americana. And I consider myself a roots Americana artist, which means I represent, because of my upbringing, gospel music, blues, soul. Those are my big three: gospel, blues, soul. And I lean more on the song rather than the style of music. So however the song comes to me, some people hear it and they're like, this sounds like a country song. And in my head, I'm like, not at all. But if that's how you receive it, that's fine. As long, I do consider myself a roots artist. And as far as my lyrics are concerned, my lyrics are always people focused, and growth focused, healing focused. But in the last few years, I definitely see myself more as a storyteller. Yeah. And that is what my live performance is. I'm telling the stories of where these songs came from. And in me telling those stories, I'm sharing with you about a person or a community of people that you may never get to meet because, who just decides to go walk into a jail and work with the women that are incarcerated? Who decides to go to Rikers Island and go work with young teenagers there? Who goes into nursing homes because, so I consider myself a thread. That is what my music is. It is a thread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a lot.
Like yeah. You know what? And I want people to connect to the word storytelling. Know your story. And I know you have something on your website too, where people, if they wanted to, there's a service that you offer. It's not about making an album, but making your own song and telling a story in your story. Because I think the moment you do a really great job of telling your story, that's another pathway to doing exactly what you want. That awareness, that release, that recharge, all of that is in there too.
Yeah. I offer a service. I started it in the past year, but it's called Your Song. So I've been offering songwriting sessions for people who are not musicians. You don't have to know how to write. You don't have to know music, but I'll meet with you over Zoom. And it basically is a therapy session. We talk. I have you journal before, we come into the Zoom room. And then we honestly, as I let the person speak and talk about what's been on their heart, what they've been struggling with, I'm just taking notes. And what's always amazing to me is, they can see the notes as I'm typing, but I'll tell them to look at this at this sheet that we're going to use for our lyrics. And so many times they're like, I said that? I'm like, yeah, and that's a lyric. That came out of my mouth. Yeah, you said that. Your words are music. Your words, and I think there's something strong in that. A lot of us are told we don't have a voice. We can't sing. There's no way we could write, but a lot of times what we say, what just naturally comes out of our mouth is magic and is the song. That is the meat. And so, yeah, I offer Your Song to individuals, groups. I work with teens, and that's been my own way of healing. I've come right back around to music therapy. So
yeah. And I'm going to make sure that I put the website. It's going to be right under the description, but you can go ahead and tell them your website.
Yeah, it's Kyshona.com, and you'll see a tab for Your Song. So just go to Kyshona.com/Your Song, and it'll tell you all that we offer. And also, my booking agent, he is really on board with this project because, I told him after this past year of seeing how much people need music, I want to be that thread that connects communities. a lot of times there's a disconnect between the performing arts centers. Sorry, but
Oh,
there's
I love it. That's real stuff. Yeah, bring me that natural sound.
sorry, but there's a disconnect between performing arts centers who are typically your wealthier, you know, older listening community, and there's a disconnect between them and then the youth, or them and people that are in recovery. And so my goal is to go, when I show up in a community, I'm going to come and do an outreach and do a your song session with people that are in recovery, and then bring that song to my performance at the Performing Arts Center, but also bring the people so that the two communities can meet. And these people that are in what I call the outskirts of society, the shadows of society, can see that there is an art space for them, right? And lets them know, like, you are welcome in this performing space. This isn't out of reach for you. You are welcome here. But also making the Performing Arts Center look and see who's in their communities. Like, we're telling them, find Kyshona and outreach. What's something that speaks to you? And that they're having to do the research. There's the word, right? They're having to do the research of, like, yeah, what does our community offer? Oh, look, I had no idea we had a recovery house for women that are that have young children. How can we go and help them write their stories and their songs? So that's how we're going to take your song and add that to the artistry of Kyshona, just to deepen communities.
Yeah, I love it. I just want you to know there was another R word in there that I like, recovery.
It is recovery.
At any given time, we get to enter recovery and define what that means for us. Recovery, I see it as a healing thing. It's another word for healing. When you enter into your recovery, you get to define what you're recovering from. So I love that. Yeah. So I got the album pulled up.
Okay.
It's the latest album. Let me go back. All right. And this album is called Listen. And the first song off of here, the title track is Listen. So I'm just going to play a little bit of that.
Yeah. Da-da. Why you gotta interrupt when I'm not done talking? I need you to keep it shut. This ain't up for discussion.
Now, I just love how the pace of this. So this song right here, Listen, what inspired this?
A conversation with a songwriter friend. We were on tour headed towards Kansas City, Missouri. And it was a few years ago during the height of the Me Too movement. And so, as you do on long car drives, we were leaving Nashville, driving to Kansas City. It was me and two other songwriters. Both of them were white. I'm black, And my friend asked, hey, Kyshona, what's your opinion on this Me Too movement? What's it like for you? What things stick out for you? And so I'm telling her my experience as a Black woman, what my experience was and has been with this idea of the movement in mind. But for every truth that I spoke, she had but don't you think? But what about, but have you ever tried? And at the point I was like, why am I debating my truth? Like you asked me to speak my truth, and now we're in a debate. And the other artist up front was turning to her and was like, hey, do you realize that every time Kyshona speaks her, what is right, for what is real for her, you have a retort. Maybe don't do that, Yeah. And I'm one of these people where I can't express my anger in the moment, but I just get quiet because I'm like, something doesn't feel right. And I don't know how to say this without, showing my anger. But I realize this is a problem we have, right? Many of us ask someone, what do they need? What's going on? Somebody says, I'm not okay. And then we try to fix it in that moment. We have answers for everything. When in truth, all somebody needs is for you to hear them say, I'm not all right, and just be a listener.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of the most important classes I took in college when I was being trained in studying music therapy was the technique of mirroring another person, right? And you have to, like, if I got trained on how to listen, right, which is like keep your mouth shut, don't interject my opinions or what I think or how this would feel for me, but just simply receive the information.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do that as a society. And it's not always like out of malice. We want to help, but a lot of times it's not helpful when someone is speaking to you and you are no longer listening because you're like, oh, I should tell them about that time when this,
Mm-hmm.
or they're telling you about, their childhood, and you're like, oh, I have an answer for this. I know somebody they should talk to. You're not hearing them anymore
Mm-hmm.
because you're trying to problem solve. And so that is the basis of this. Like, I feel like as a society, we've gotten to this point of we want to fix it. We have the answers for everything, but we don't know how to just sit and be with the person that is in pain. Because what happens when you are sitting with the person and truly listening, that allows you could take the time for it, allow you to take their experience and walk with it for a day or two. Walk with it. And that to me is just deepening that level of empathy that we can have for another person. When you can just hear their story, sit with it, walk with it, and observe what it's like for you with their story in mind. Does this all make sense, what I'm saying?
Listen, they just got the session right there and they got it for free. So listen, in a nutshell, listening, when you truly listen, it leads to empathy. Empathy is the key word here. The two key words, listen and empathy. Yeah. The session has just been rolled out. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yeah. So, it's funny because there's two versions that, like, there's this version of the song, which does have this simmering like anger underneath it. But then we just released another version, which is I sent you the link for, which is very soft and gentle and kind of like, it's okay. Come on, let me bring it on close, baby. Just listen. That's all you got to do. Mm-hmm. And it's true. Like, I'm finding that message has been both a scream for me, like, shut up and listen, but also like a shh, hey. And I think that's the phase we're in. Like, we all just need a hush, just be quiet, just hush. Yeah. Sit here and be gentle.
Yeah. You said something powerful too that I don't want my viewers to skip over. Why am I debating my truth?
Yeah.
Listen. Yeah. Debate your truth. No. You get to share your truth. Your feelings, your experience is your experience, period. Yes. No debate here.
No debate.
And just, being aware of that. You don't have to debate your truth. I like that. Mm-hmm. And so I want to play one more song. Is there one specific that you really love performing that you want me to skip to? Or all of them are your babies?
They're all my babies, but I feel like the song Fear.
Fear. Okay. All right.
Might be one that I sit with a lot.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Here's Fear.
listening to this, and that was what stood out for me that I love. That was my favorite line. Call it by its name. In order to tame it, we gotta name it first.
Yes.
Call it by its name.
Yes.
So tell me why that one sits with you the most. I love this track.
Yeah, I wrote that one with my brother, Kelvin Armstrong. He was living with me in a moment of his life where he had just gotten out of a really dark moment with depression, and he took a leap. He was still living in South Carolina, but came to Nashville to try and find a better life and living for his family, his wife and children. So he was living in my music room, and we were just talking about what is the thing that has kept us from going full force into our truth. What has held us back the most, right? Why did it take him so many years to decide maybe a different state? Why did it take me so long to leave my job as a clinical music therapist, right? And we were naming it all these different things, but we were like, in the end, it's just fear. Fear. And we can call it, it's fear of being recognized, fear of not being seen, fear of failure, fear of success, right? And we could call it so many things, but in the end, it is fear. You can take away all the fuzzy stuff, and it's like, no, the root of it. So like you said, we have to name it in order to be able to overcome it. And we were like, let's write a song where we're just like, this song is written to that fear, but we never say its name in the song, right? Because I feel like that leaves it open. What is it for you? Is it a person? And in the first verse, it's saying like, don't call it crazy. Don't call it being insane. Like basically, your intuition, your gut, that is your inner voice. That to me is God talking to me saying like, girl, go. So trust that, call it out, and then move past it. Like call it out, name it as you walk by it. So that is the purpose. And that is like the reason behind that song. And it's like, I'm so proud of that. And the fact that I wrote it with my brother, it just means even more because it feels even more me,
Yeah. I love that. Listen, you all got the session today. Listen, and the only reason why I'm sitting here talking to Kyshona right now, because I moved past that fear. What if she says no? I can't, I couldn't think of all that. I was only going to get a yes or a no. And fortunately, I got a yes. So
I say yes to a lot of things too, so I love it. If anybody's like, you want to come talk about some therapy stuff? Yes, let's go.
Yes. You got to be ready to rock and roll in that. Yes. You could have been anywhere in this world today, but you chose to hang out with me at this time and in this moment, and I appreciate that. Our time has come. I know that you do have some live streaming performances coming up, and I plan to be a part of it, and people can purchase tickets.
Yeah. On the 29th, I'm playing for United Ministries. They're doing outreach. This is for also people who are, living in the outskirts of society. And so we are raising funds. They're collaborating with them. They're based in Greenville, South Carolina. But you can purchase tickets at unitedministries.org. And it'll be a live stream, but also a very small crowd of people in Greenville, South Carolina will be in the room. And I'm trying to think of another live stream I have coming up.
I think I saw something for May 9th, or do I have that right?
But right. I'm trying.
But it's on her website.
Yes, is it on my website? That's amazing.
Yes, it's on her website. So I certainly plan to attend one of those performances because I just love everything that she brings to the stage. Whenever I give somebody the stamp of amazing and powerhouse, it's because they did their work, they do their work, and they operate in this vein of excellence. And I love it. So you are an amazing powerhouse. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. This was great. Thank you. I had a lot of coffee, so I appreciate you just hanging on.
And you gave us a whole bunch of R words too.
Yes, I had no idea. I love it.
So thank you. I certainly look forward to reconnecting with you again. Yeah, you have it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Until next time, if anybody has not told you all today, let me be the first. You are amazing. And why settle for a K when amazing is always an option? See you next week.